Hey guys, welcome back to the Freedom Kickstarter podcast. So today's guest is someone I'm very excited to speak to. I've known her online for quite a number of years now, but first time today we're meeting in person. So as always, I'll put her in the spotlight, let her introduce herself. Today we have Cath Reohorn of Copy. So Cath, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you for having me on. It seems mad to be meeting you for the first time today. My name is Cath. I run a business called Copy, and we help service-based businesses to get more out of primarily their organic marketing. But any sort of online digital presence, that's our job. So if it's written, we do it. Our reputation, I suppose, if you want to call it that, was built with coaches, gyms, personal trainers, people in the health and fitness space. But over the years, we've sort of expanded to work with a broader section of people.
Nice, love it. So definitely want to dive into the backstory at some point as well, but just give people a taste of what's your day-to-day like at the moment, like what sort of stuff you're working on, what's your schedule like. Give us an insight into the life of Cath.
All right, cool. So the productivity hack of all productivity hacks is get up and go to work. Occasionally that will involve training. I've got a home gym, so we'll hit squats and deads primarily and completely ignore bench, obviously. Shower, work, and from client work, we'll be looking at quite in-depth stuff for our bespoke clients. We'd be doing anything from ads to sales pages to funnel optimization, which basically means we write a whole bunch of stuff so they make a whole bunch of money. And for our group coaching clients, we are writing things once a month so that they get a whole bunch of assets delivered to them on the first of the month that they can plug and play.
Got it. Talk to me a bit about the group offer. So what does that involve? Who's it for? And what does it look like?
Well, what was weird about the group offer was that when I put it together, I intended it to be designed for fitness people. And then when I launched it, I had all kinds of people signing up for it saying, I can make it work. So it's written for health and fitness coaches. But I got a drone photographer for an estate agent in that group, and he's making it work. But the reason why it's so adaptable is because there are three things that the copy does every single month. Either you can, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure document. The first option is to get more of the right people to see your stuff, top of funnel content. We've got authority-based content where you show your own expertise and you take a stand on things. And then we've got a very specific applications strategy that we run once a month. And we do segmented sales, public sales, and private sales. So we don't ever fatigue the list. Everybody gets everything. Everybody's working on different goals at any given time. And I'm there in the group to sort of like facilitate if they've got specific questions about the things that they're doing. Nice. They just customize it to work for themselves and plug and play.
So did that come, I'm assuming that came after the bespoke offer? Was that an add-on or was that the primary business model?
I guess it's kind of evolved. Like what I noticed was once upon a time, my main done for you offer was just social media. It was called a Dirty Dozen because you had 12 posts. And that evolved and it became more stuff and you got stories or you got strategies or you got, rewrites of your bio and things like that. But after a little while, just having one sort of digital place where you're putting all your eggs into this one basket wasn't really enough anymore. So we started to offer other things. And one of the main things people were lacking was strategy. And the other thing was, where did they go then? So the offer kind of naturally emerged based on what the market needed. And that depends on, how much the business is, how much time you've spent doing work on this yourself, and how big your digital footprint is already, really. So that's kind of where you fall into one of the two camps.
Well, I think it's an interesting point you make about it just kind of naturally evolved there, because I found this myself, that you can really want to put together an offer and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But most of the time the audience will tell you what you need to create, even if you're not putting out specific surveys, even if you're not directly asking. Like, if you're keeping an eye out and looking at what people are asking you, looking at questions that come in, all that kind of stuff, you can kind of spot when an offer is going to work, right? So I think that's a really good lesson in that you don't always need to create something from scratch. Just look at what people are asking for and then create a solution to that problem, I suppose.
100%. I'm actually really bullish on this. So one of the things that I really advocate for, and I wish all coaches would do, is to just speak to your audience all of the time without trying to sell them anything. Talk to them when you don't want to sell them stuff. And when that happens, they will make requests from you, and then you know you're going to be able to sell that offer because they've requested it. So it almost feels like a trick. Just talk to them when you don't want anything. This is a massive waste of time. It's really not. This is an absolutely essential part of your research process that you can't afford to not do. Not if you want to have successful launches.
It was interesting because I was in Texas for a mastermind last month, and one of the speakers there, his agency does, I think he does about $500,000 to $1 million a month just in client work. And he was running through his process and talking about 5 or 6 times a month, we'll get on the phone with either a current client or a past client and just have a chat to them about what they would ideally like, what they're going through and whatever. And someone says, or someone put their hand up and said, who do you get to do those conversations with the client? He said, I do them. He's like, I might be the owner, but I'm not too big to speak to my audience. I know that part of what you were saying there might not be that you literally pick up the phone, but I think in any business, it's so easy to get away from who your actual core customer is and you start to think you know who it is. But as you build a business, you grow and evolve. A lot of us initially are our ideal customer, and then we move away from that. So yeah, the idea that you are just putting out feelers, seeing, right, what do people actually want here? I mean, apart from just being smart, it saves a lot of potential wasted effort of creating something that people really don't want.
1,000,000%. And I really genuinely think that there is no higher value return on your time as the founder than to talk to your customers and your potential customers. So I always think when you're delegating that job out, like my market is coaches mostly, and they're keen to delegate themselves out to DMs. They don't like to do DMs. They think it's a time-consuming thing. They don't really enjoy it, and they want to put a VA in there. But I'm like, why would you want to do that? It's dead easy. You get so much return from it, and if you can't do that already, you can't train somebody else to do it. So yeah, I'm completely with you. Highest value task, get in there, talk to them all the time. Don't try to sell them anything until they ask. Yeah. And then sell them exactly what they want at as much as you can spend.
Yeah. Like it. And so in the bespoke work, what kind of clients you look for that? Who's your ideal person to come to you?
That I consider one of the most interesting parts of this business, and usually people who have got more than 3 insertion points into their business. So lots of our clients have got organic social media already. They may have ads already, and they've usually got something else. So they've often got a landing page or a email sequence or some other way that you can get into the business. That means there's a big enough digital footprint that they need either lots of other things added, or they need refreshers on the things that are already working okay, and they're just looking to optimize it. So what we tend to do is take a look at what they've got in place already and see, is it working? Can we make it work better? And then when the time is right, what can we add? What one thing can we add that would be the highest leveraged use of our resources? And then we'll build up a bigger footprint for them over time.
And so at the moment, it's kind of an interesting time in copywriting. I'm speaking to some people who are like, I love it. AI has allowed me to do so much more. Like I'm that much more productive, or I get my work done quicker, or even I can do high quality work because I've got something that helps me with editing, idea generation, that kind of thing. Other people are acting like it's their last days on earth and everything is just going to crap and they're looking for any other career they could do. You certainly seem to be more in that camp of like, no, things are going great, we're thriving, we're doing really well. What do you think, what's making the difference for you? Like, what are you doing that maybe other copywriters aren't at the moment?
Honestly, I think if you are just a copywriter at the moment and the only thing you're doing is writing words, that can be quite a scary time because it feels like you don't have enough to offer the market. One of the ways that we're using AI, I actually published an article on my Substack about this, like yesterday, I think, maybe, or the day before, recently anyway, about rather than getting AI to create original content, we are using it to process a lot of the stuff that we're already making. So we might, like for example, I make notes almost constantly. We were talking earlier and I was taking notes on the phone. I'll feed it the notes at the end of the week and ask it to analyse patterns. I'll feed it my journal. I'll feed it my questions from a client that it's now 5 p.m. and I don't really know what you're asking me because you're just brain dumping and I'm not 100% sure that I've actually understood your question properly. And my process-driven instructions to team, because that's not the way I would normally work, I'm getting it to sort of vet me for clarity on those things, and it involves take a huge amount of information and find patterns or find threads that are either repeated or emerging. And it's amazing for that. Like, it's so, so effective for taking a huge amount of data and interpreting it, particularly numerical data, because I'm terrible at that. I really need a lot of help with that. But in terms of even just my own stuff, voice notes and things that I've made myself, it can do a fantastic job of that.
Yeah, I know that for me, I started working with a new client back in October time, I think. So 6 months ago. And my research phase in the past would have been, I'd read a couple of his books anyway, but it would have been reread those books again. It would have been listen to him on podcasts, like go back through webinars, that kind of thing, reread a load of old content. And if I did the research process full time, that would have been a good, even if you exclude the books, that's probably a whole day's work, like a straight 8 hours. As it was, I could get the digital copies of his books. I could download webinar transcripts, grabbed his sort of last 20 posts off social media, last 20 emails, put them into AI and basically had a conversation with it. You know, as you said, what trends are here, what patterns are here, what are the, I think I asked things like, can you list me 20 core values, 20 things they stand against, 20 common words and phrases, all that kind of stuff. In the background, I was still listening to those podcasts, I was still working through the books, but it meant that could be done at a much more leisurely pace and I could really get started within literally an hour, which is just mad. I think that for me as well, stuff like writing things like ads, where ideally if you're working with the right type of client, they've got the budget, you want to test multiple things. In the past, I'd be there for hours manually writing out different hooks and different calls to actions. With AI, all right, there's still editing involved, but you can say, here's an ad I've written, you know, I want to keep everything from line 5 to line 18 the same. Can you write me 10 different hooks that go in and 10 different calls to action? Like, there you go. Or now you've got multiple different ad variations you can test, and you've maybe taken 45 minutes to write the first draft and 15 minutes to write every other variation. So
one of the things that's great in terms of using it for ads is that the rules change on the platforms all of the time. And so from 1 month to the next, you're not 100% sure what the meta compliance rules are. I mean, and I'm not going to read that, honestly. Like, I don't think I've ever read that document. So you link it and you feed it the ads you've written and say, are we breaking any rules here? And I think that's a really useful thing, to have it compare one thing with another thing, like a spot the difference type of test. It's incredibly effective at that. And even if you don't intend to use it for writing at all, it's still really useful to measure against an original source.
Yep, definitely. I agree with that. In terms of the clients you take on them, I know that kind of fitness was your thing initially. Have you kind of branched away from that a bit? Like, what niches are you serving more so now?
I would consider it any service-based industry, really. But my bread and butter is still coming from the fitness industry. My audience is almost exclusively coaches. I might have a small number of people who are, branching into other areas, but overwhelmingly my relationships are with people in the coaching industry. What's interesting is that people who are in the coaching industry are often quite reluctant to make referrals. They want you to be a best kept secret, and it's incredibly hard to grow a business like that. But the total opposite is true of people who serve the industry. So copywriters share work with podcast studios, share work with graphic designers, share work with AI experts or automation guys, back-end people. The back-end people seem really happy to share referrals all of the time. And I feel like I've got a lovely network of people who are our little backroom goblins, which I would firmly put myself in that camp, who are perfectly happy to make referrals and share work. So that is allowing us to branch out into other things that we otherwise wouldn't have access to.
Got it. So let's rewind the clock a bit then, and I'll do the very cliche podcasting question, but talk to us about how you got into copywriting and what the journey was up to this point.
Copywriting was never intended to be anything for me. It was supposed to just be a skill that I learned for myself. I was a psychologist, an academic psychologist for 12 years. I got made redundant twice. I moved from that into being a personal trainer, and I was a fully booked gym floor PT. I worked and worked and worked, and I packed my calendar, and I had just about enough money to pay my bills. Then my dad died, and I went back to work the next day. I had a 6 p.m. session, and I didn't skip it. that was my choice in terms of coping mechanism. I didn't want to process any of it. So I just ignored it because it was enormous and uncomfortable and I didn't want to deal with it. And I went back to work and I trained 3 times a day, and I'm not going to think about this and I'm just going to shut it out. Until maybe 12 weeks later, when I got hit with the worst flu I've ever had in my life. So I wouldn't stop. And then my body made me stop. So for 2 weeks, I was lying in bed with flu. I've never been so ill in my life, before or after. And the whole time I'm lying in bed, I'm like, shit. How am I going to make any money? I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my mortgage. I'm a proper grown-up at this point. I'm in my mid-30s. And I'm like, it is absurd that I can be like 1 month away from... This is too fragile. I need more security. So I thought I'll just take all my personal training clients and I'll move them online. I'll be an online coach. Which at that time, that would have been about 2019. So that was emerging. And I tried to do that until I realised I have absolutely none of the skills I need to do this. I thought there'd be loads of carryover. I thought I'm going to be a fully booked gym floor PT. So the carryover is going to be dead easy. I know all the stuff about niche. I know all the stuff about how to sell. I know, but I did not know. And then I had the cold sweat moment of, oh my God, I have got none of the necessary skills to do this and to keep myself safe. So then I started to learn about copy. And that's when I found you. I thought if I could only invest in one skill, what is the thing that's going to keep me safest? And I thought it could be sales, but I hated doing sales. So I remember speaking to an early mentor about, if I want to take my business online, but I hate doing sales calls. What's got to happen for me to not have to do a sales call ever again? And he kind of laughed at me. It was Success, and he kind of laughed at me, and he was like, basically just fucking grow up and get it done. That was very much the energy. And he was like, well, you'd have to become really good at copy. I was like, cool, that's what I'll do then. Because I'm not going to do that.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. I'm going to go and learn that skill instead. So I started digging around and I found you. And my journey started really at that point with the Freedom Kickstarter. And that's where I started to explore this idea of how compelling copy could be, how persuasive words could be. And really, for me at the time, how much of the heavy lifting the marketing bit can do to make the sales easier. And that's what I cared about at the time. I didn't especially want to do this for anybody else. I just didn't want to do a sales call. Yeah. That was a pretty humble origin, really.
I think it's interesting because I don't have a no sales call policy, but it's a very minimalist one. It's like if you want a chat and you are genuinely interested, I'll talk to you for like 15 minutes. Just because I think that, that's enough for you to ask the questions you need to make up your mind. But what I found is that by being good at copy, even if you get on the phone with someone, as you say, it does all the heavy lifting for you. I got on the phone with someone, it's very low pressure, I'm very chilled out. I'm basically like, look, you know about all this, what questions need answering for you to make a decision? I'll answer those. At the end of the call, it's like, cool. Yeah, off you go, make a decision, whichever one, not going to pressure you on the call. So yeah, for the same reason that I think, yes, there's absolutely a time and a place to learn sales stuff. And if you want to do that, I'm all for it. But yeah, very similar for me. I just didn't want to be having to sell myself to people. Certainly not on a phone call, like typing stuff on my phone, on a laptop. I'm like, that's the dream, really, to be able to make sales without having to pick up a phone. And you can do it whether you're at, in the local coffee shop at 8 a.m. or on a cliche again, beach in Bali at 4 p.m. drinking a cocktail. So
you won't find me on a beach in Bali. It was funny, right? Because when I was I must have been about 18, 19 years old. And between the second and third year of my degree, I got a job in a call centre. And my job was to sell mobile phone contracts for free. And I would be so anxious because this was a commission-based job. I was so anxious about basically cold dialing people that I would leave the call centre, which was above a furniture shop, and I'd walk around the corner at lunchtime and I would day drink in Wetherspoons aggressively for 1 hour. And then I would come back to the call centre, and by then I was just warmed up enough that I could do the sales call, and I was actually quite good at sales. But it took so much emotional spend out of me, Mike. Like, I just didn't want that to be my life. So I was like, whatever I can do to grease the wheels a little bit. And then, like you, this can be a logical decision for you. So I'm so transparent in the sales process so that people, it is just a logistical issue at some point. It becomes, how many calls am I going to have to attend? How much money am I going to have to give you? Like, eventually you are going to have to answer those questions. So answer them up front so you can let people make up their own minds if there's enough value in what you give them to justify the price.
What was the process then from going from this is something I'm doing for me to, oh, I'm quite good at this for other people, I'm going to pursue that?
It's so funny because I was actually keeping it secret. There was a guy I knew, his name is Lee Hand, big shout out to Lee Hand. He was working as part of Authority Network at the time. And he approached me about doing his social media marketing. I had some experience of working with, Dan Salcombe, building websites and writing blogs and helping trainers to rank their websites on Google until, he approached me and he was like, I want you to take this over for me. And I was like, let's keep that on the down low because I'm still trying to make this coaching thing work. I was still fully emotionally unavailable and could not coach anyone because I actually don't care about how you're feeling. Don't talk to me about how you're feeling. I don't want to feel anything I'm feeling. So I certainly don't want to hear about your feelings. And so my ability to coach someone under those quite aggressive restrictions was limited. Couldn't be a good coach, really. I could be an okay coach. But I wasn't prepared to sit with someone's emotions at all. And so I thought, well, this seems like another way that I could create some financial safety, which I'm realizing is a repeating pattern. And I did that. And when I didn't want anyone to know that I was doing it because I thought it would really confuse the offer. And as soon as I mentioned that I was doing it, I had so many inbound requests that day that it actually crashed my laptop. And they were so keen to get rid of it. This is what I mean about, like, people will tell you what they want. The market will dictate the truth. So I said yes to all of them. And I decided I'd figure it all out later. And eventually, we were making much more of an impact with those coaching businesses. And I felt like I was helping more people indirectly that step away from my other business. I also had to step away from Dan, which I was quite sad about because he really gave me a chance when I had really no portfolio, had no evidence. He was a really good guy to me, and I couldn't keep doing both because this was taking off so fast.
I think it's always a difficult one, isn't it? Like, I've worked with people before who you always want to stay really loyal, and I like to think I'm very loyal to the people who give me a chance, but at a certain stage I think you have to be almost a bit selfish to grow to where you need to go. And like, sometimes if you stick around places, actually you don't mean to, but maybe you start sort of not doing as good a quality work, it's not as timely. So I kind of get it. Like, I don't know obviously the exact situation, but to me it's one of those where it's probably the right decision, because it works for you, and long term it's probably better for the other person as well, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. And I like him, and I in my mind I've left on good terms, but I couldn't keep doing both, and that was really hard. Like, these points in your business where you're kind of at this crossroads, and you have a number of them, but it was the first time I had to make quite a hard decision. I wasn't making a decision because I was trying to escape something. And I felt lots of the time in the beginning of your business, you're making decisions because you're like, I'm in the shit, I've got to fix it. I've got no money, I've got flow. It's that type of stuff. But then eventually you have to make decisions that are like, this is actually really good. And I have to say no to good to pursue something like that might not even work. Yeah. And that becomes really hard. That was the first time I had to do that. And there have been lots of times since. But the first time is the hardest, I think.
How did it feel when you got all those inbound inquiries from day one, basically?
Incredibly reassuring. Incredibly reassuring. They were cool. I was willing to have a go. And this was absolutely not a mapped out plan. This was like, I'll say yes and I'll figure it out later. I didn't have an offer. Kind of made the offer up afterwards. Based on what I thought was reasonable, what I thought they needed, what I thought, was a fair exchange for the price. But at the time, it was just a case of, I need you to take this off my plate. And that's all I ever intended to do, until I was like, oh, actually, there's maybe more opportunities for us here with, have you thought about doing this? And then it became about providing them with more of not a consultation really, but like somebody to soundboard ideas with and to see opportunities, because it's sometimes surprisingly hard to see that in your own business. And it takes somebody outside to be like, hey, dummy, like this is a really obvious thing we should be doing. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think that's very easy to forget, as in that's why am always part of some kind of mentoring or a mastermind, just because you either even jumping on a Zoom meeting with people, as much as I don't particularly love Zoom meetings, but jumping on a Zoom meeting or going to an in-person event, just the ideas that other people bring to it. Like even people who are earlier in their business journey, sometimes it's very refreshing to see that. And I get it when I work with clients that you'll work with someone, but they're so close to their own offer and their own niche, they can't see outside that. And it's like, well, actually, when you're working with a few different niches, you might have someone there who their business is doing like 3, 4, 20 million quid a month or dollars or whatever it is. Yeah, we're not doing those kind of numbers, but we can see stuff they can't because we've got this view, whereas their viewpoint is just literally that.
Especially in fitness, because it's so insular. Everybody is friends with everybody else, and you can even tell. I don't know if you have seen these patterns, but you can tell who someone's been mentored by how they talk, how they write, how they present themselves online. And then the risk of that is because you're in this little bubble, it becomes a bit of an echo chamber and you never get other ideas. And yet when you look at, estate agents or property investors and they're doing different things, even just on social media, different hooks even, you think, oh, that would have brilliant carryover. But because you never really expose yourself to it, you just don't know. So there's so many, things that we can learn from different industries, definitely, for sure.
And as an outsider, it seems to me that your business from that point has kind of just grown. And I'm sure there have been points where it's gone down. It's been a bit of a roller coaster. But again, from my standpoint, it seems like compared to other copywriters who go through these huge feasts and famines and very, very, very up and down and all that kind of thing, your business has grown very linearly over the years. So first of all, feel free to correct me if that's entirely wrong. But if that is roughly correct, what do you think's been I hesitate to use the word secret, but what's been the key factor in that when other people do seem to struggle so much on the feast and famine?
That's a good question. I think for a long time we were really stable and we were climbing. In the last, I would say 2 years, it's been a little bit less predictable, but it has always evened out. And I think part of the reason why I had that boom was luck. I think I was in at the right time. I think I was fast. I think I wrote good copy fast. You always say this, you don't do excellent copy if it takes all week, do good copy fast. And I think I was well positioned. I think that's something that people often forget. I think I had some fortunate connections that allowed me to be around bigger fish. I've worked with some really good mentors, and I've worked in some coaching mentorships, which have helped a little bit, which have given me a bit of a platform. Haven't had a huge amount of audience growth from any of that stuff, but I think it has built my authority and it's built trust quickly. In terms of how do I not basically financially crash, I think it's because I don't spend all the money I've got. It's nothing super complicated. I feel like we were talking earlier, I feel like I've always got a year's runway of, if I sold nothing, if everything dried up today, how long could we last? And I can still pay my staff. I can still keep the lights on. I can still pay my internet bill. I can still work and try. How long can you keep trying for? And I don't think I'm a risk averse person, but I like about 12 months runway, because then I think once you've got less than that, you start to become a little bit defensive and you become a little bit urgent about the sale. And that isn't how I like things to feel. So a little bit of luck and strong cash flow.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are some people who I think work very well when the pressure's on and when they need to make it work. But I think that's far fewer people than there are people who think they're like that. I think most other people, you can sense scarcity and desperation when it's coming through, whether it's in a cold pitch, whether it's in a sales call, whether it's just in the stuff you're putting out online for your marketing campaigns. But I'm in exactly the same boat, as in I never want to be struggling for cash flow, just because I think that I want to launch offers because I want to launch them. I want to sign clients because I want to work with them. For me, fun is a big thing in business, and not everything's going to be fun. But for my stuff that I launch, I want to do things because I wouldn't say I do them for free, but if they don't sell as well as I'd like them to, I still want to enjoy doing that because I want to do it. So I know we're having a bit of a mini rant about it earlier, but it's like the money you make is not your money. It's the business's money. And then you need to put a certain amount aside first for taxes, for expenses, for all that kind of thing. Then you pay yourself, but you should probably still keep a fair chunk of that back, right? It's like don't live a 100K a year lifestyle if you're earning 100K. Live like you're earning 40K a year, because that's probably what you're going to be left with at the end of it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because when I was a personal trainer, I was fresh out of teaching, so I only had a personal bank account. So when I would take my, my £30 for my hour session that I'd done, and I'd gone to Santander and I'd put it in the bank, that money was my money. And because I was earning next to nothing, it actually did end up being my money. But when we set up Kind Copy, and it needed to be we're being paid digitally, so we have to pay tax on everything. The smartest thing I did was get a business bank account. That helped so much, because I don't if I've got a client this month who's looking to hit 200K, I don't get paid any more money off him, and I won't pay myself any more money either way. He could make nothing, business could make nothing. I'm still going to pay myself. And I think it's really important to separate the finances of the business and yourself. Otherwise, you run the risk of overclocking yourself with work, which is exactly what happened to me in the beginning. Because I'd come from teaching, you earn a set amount. So the thought that I could work more and earn more blew my mind. I was like, this is absolutely fucking tits. I'm going to work all the time. I'm going to make loads of money. And then I did that for a bit, and I was like, I'm a bit scared to spend it because I don't really know what any of these rules are. So business bank account, boring advice, it's boring, but it's so important.
No, I'm exactly the same. That's one of the best things that I did, was from two standpoints. One, exactly what you mentioned, but secondly, from an investing in yourself standpoint, like if there's something I want to buy that I can physically afford and I see it as a genuine investment, like there's no second thoughts about that whatsoever, because it's the business buying it. It's not me. I still get paid the same every single month. I think it allows you to have faster business growth as well, because you're not so tied to this is my personal cash, and we all keep it a bit close to our chest when it's our own cash, I suppose.
Yes, well, so and I guess the nice thing about it is that when you've got the business paying for things for the business, that becomes like a separate person from you, and then you want to keep as much money as you can in the business so that you can make aggressive moves, so that you can, have a bold campaign and you can throw some money at ads and test stuff and not be, devastated and lose the shirt off your back if it doesn't work. It allows you to be a bit more creative and experimental in how you spend, because it's not it's not real money. That's their money, the business's money.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned earlier about kind of starting off and having this workload, and I'm guessing probably being quite stressed, having a lot of clients to juggle. But now you've got people working with you. So what was the process for that? Like the hiring process, how did you know when to bring people on board? And also I know that you were saying earlier that it's mostly family you hire. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear a bit more about that.
All right, cool. So what happened was I was overworking. Basically, all of my stories start with I was overworking. And it was Christmas Day, I think. I was working on Christmas Day. And I was in my bedroom. I worked on a desk in my bedroom at the time. I was writing. I had something like a client roster of around about 35 clients for myself, and no team at that point. It was COVID, and my husband was he worked in a steelworks, and he was an essential worker, so he had to keep going to work. And at the time, he was going through a bit of a mental health situation, and he wanted to leave his job. And I said, "Well, leave. We'll make it work. Come and work here, and we'll leave. And let's work on making you happier." And he was like, "I can't do that for me. I can't do that for me. I need to keep working." And then one day, I had a seizure at my desk. So I was working myself so hard that I was not allowing myself to rest. I was mega stressed. Had this seizure at my desk. And then I went to him and said, "I actually really need you to come now. And I need you to do it for me." And then he would leave his job. I probably could have got away with not doing that, to be honest.
It's quite a drastic one.
It was a one-off seizure. I probably would have walked it off. I would have been fine. Just keep working. But yeah, so he came into the business first, and then my sister came in next. So I wanted someone to take some of the writing off me. Claire came. Thank God. They both left jobs that Alid wasn't especially happy in his job, but Claire did like her job and she had great relationships with the team. So it was a big deal for her to leave. She joined me for a bit. We were working together on one desk in my bedroom. We were squished up together. Then we grew and her son-in-law came into the business and we have one other non-family member in the business as a full-time team member as well. So it kind of grew in fits and starts out of necessity. It was never, and it isn't my intention to have an enormous team. I feel quite envious of people who got these, solopreneur lifestyles where they are super agile and they can bang out projects and they only need to pay themselves. But they came in to help me, and at the time when I really needed help, and thank God they did. And one of the really lovely things about having family in the business is that when things do go tits up, which they always do, you can feel completely safe that they have got your back and that you haven't got to be cagey about, this is how much money we've made this month, this is kind of tight. Like, you can be completely honest and you haven't got to mind or guard how you present that information, which is relaxing.
Do you find there are any downsides to working with family members?
Yes, all of the other downsides. Yeah, obviously no one's getting fired today, so we can only grow. I think that's been a big part of why we haven't had any peaks and troughs that are that dramatic, because none of us are going anywhere. So we're just going to make it work. So when we talk about cutting costs or making more money, the answer is always, we just need to make more money because nobody's going anywhere.
I also, and this is purely guessing, but I'm imagining that a lot of the time, if a business is struggling and you're an employee who's got nothing in common with your employer apart from the fact they write your paycheck, there's not that pressure on you to kind of step up to the plate anymore. And it's like, well, if the business goes under, I'll lose my job. But if we're just struggling a bit, well, I can stick it out for another 6 months and get paid. I'm assuming you have a good relationship with your family members. So my guess is that if things are a bit, it's not such a good month, or, things have had a bit of a decline, emotionally, they're probably more invested to right the ship, so to speak, than someone who's just, in a job for a paycheck.
100%. And I tell you what's really important to me is I'm savagely ADHD. So the way I deliver instructions, I'm not amazing on speaking, but in terms of writing, I'm much better. The way I deliver instructions can be a little bit of a bumblebee. And I think if I was dealing with an employee, they'd be like, literally, what do you want me to do? Just be clearer. And I think they would be a lot more frustrated with me. Whereas I think I've got some equity with family when they would be like, I speak Cath. I can extract what you mean from this. And that's helpful, right? On a day-to-day basis, that's valuable.
Is it difficult to separate work and home with family members?
It was when we were in the bedroom. That was savage. Because I would wake up, sit at my desk, write all day, go to sleep in my bed, 2 feet away. So my whole world was in that room for a long time. People think this, astronomical growth on the internet is this glamorous thing. I wrote on my kitchen table on a banged up old ass laptop, in my bedroom for years. And that was the reality of it. And if we lost everything and I had to go back to that, we could still make that work because we've done it. We've proved that we can do it. And there's a lot of comfort that comes from that. One of the things that I did that really helped was I built a separate office in the garden. So I live in West Wales. We've got a really big garden. So I built an office first. Lovely, really nice office. It's basically a house. So I built it so that if something happened, I've got aging parents, something happened to my mum, she could come and live in there. It's got a shower, it's got a bathroom, it's like a proper little setup. And then I built a home gym there as well. So I'm a full-blown recluse. I do not have to go anywhere. So the garden office is smart in as far as I actually walk to work and then I lock it up and I leave my work phone in the building and I come home and I have a separate phone for out of hours. So that has helped. There's little things that you can do, but I'm not sure you're ever fully off.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think that, I don't know if you're the same, when I was a personal trainer, I could be completely off because I'm like, well, I work hard, I work a lot of hours, but outside of that, I never provide any nutritional support outside of sessions. The only texts I got were to rearrange sessions or cancel. And I think that's one of the very few things I missed from that time. As much as I love my business now, I'm always thinking of ideas, and it's mostly a blessing, but partly a curse as well. Because as you said earlier, you'll be sitting there, someone will say something, not even in a conversation about marketing. I'll just be like, sitting, my grandma will say something like, hold on, grandma, idea for an email. And I won't write the whole thing, but I'll make the note there. And when you've got that ability to launch something, generate income, sign a client whenever you want, if you're a creative person, I do think it's very difficult to switch off. And that's something I've battled with over the years, both in terms of can I do that, but also, is it even a problem?
Yes. 100%. See, I've come to this conclusion, it's only a problem if it's a problem. And if you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you've got this divine inspiration to write a sales page from start to finish, headline to CTA, and it's coming at you thick and fast, you better get the hell up out of bed and write this down right now. This is perfect. I've never had to heavily edit anything I wrote at 3 a.m. So a part of me is like, but I love it though. So I'm not going to resist it that much. So I've built an office, but I've also got desks with computers in every room of the house, including the gym. So if ideas come to me and this pays our bills. So this is what we're going to do. If I can write it on my phone, if I can write it on a laptop or an iPad, we are going to equip the house because we do not lose anything. These ideas are money. We're not going to lose anything. And I think there's a lot of sensation that I want to be out of my business and I need to leverage myself and I need to hire a team so I haven't got to go in. Why would you build a business you don't want to be in? Yeah. I feel like it's my fault that I can't stop thinking about it because I've built it in that way. But when I was a personal trainer, I would agree with you. Like when you're not on the gym floor, obviously you can't be at work.
And there's always trade-offs, as in I used to so look forward to holidays when I was a trainer. I enjoyed my work, but it was very demanding at the same time. And I worked a lot. I was a 6.5-day-a-week trainer. Used to absolutely love holidays. Christmas felt like proper time off, even if I only had 3 days. Whereas now, I still really enjoy those times, but there's not that disparity between a normal day and like a holiday. And sometimes I feel a bit guilty in terms of we're going away on holiday and I'll be like, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also looking forward to waking up tomorrow morning and sitting in a different coffee shop, opening my laptop and working somewhere different. Yes, we'll go out and do things and all this kind of stuff. But I think for me, that's one of the very few downsides is that, the lack of switching off and the lack of free time doesn't really feel like free time anymore, if that makes sense, because I'm, always on thinking about stuff really.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if your brain is like this, Mike, but like the more ideas you come up with, I don't know if this is me becoming manic with ideas, but the more you generate, the more you can generate. And it feels like this almost infinitely speeding up flywheel of, so when people say, I don't know how to come up with ideas, I'm like, I literally don't know how to make these ideas stop. Yeah. I feel like, do you know the story of, I don't know, 1800s or whatever, where they all get infected with corn and they start dancing in that German city. Do you know that story that gets told?
Yes, yeah.
Where they just become like, I think they had poisoning. And they just wouldn't stop dancing until they died. I kind of feel like that's how ideas are generated for copywriters, because you just can't stop them. So there's definitely upsides and downsides. But one thing I really miss from being a personal trainer is the tiredness when you got into bed at the end of a shift, because it felt like such a clean tiredness.
Yeah, I get you.
Your brain was properly quiet. Like your body was wrecked.
Yeah.
But your brain was properly still. And because I was a teacher and then I was a writer, I felt like I've bookended like body tiredness with real like brain tiredness, and it feels completely different. I kind of miss it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I think the ideas thing, absolutely, it's almost like the more you have, the more you want to generate. And I think in my phone notes, I've got probably the next 7 years worth of products and services mapped out already, just because there's only so much time that you can start selling stuff really.
Imagine getting your hands on Mike Samuel's swipe file. Imagine what that would be worth.
Yeah, I might just sell it. There's another offer.
Sell it. I'll buy you right now. Let's do it.
So talk to us as well about, I'm interested in the idea behind kind copy. And because I think traditionally direct response and copywriting is not seen as particularly kind. It's seen as a bit bro-y, a bit aggressive, whether you're like an old school Gary Halbert fan of just sell the damn thing, or whether you're like a new school like crypto type offer person. So was it deliberately designed to kind of buck the trend and go against that?
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember what the fitness industry was like circa 2018, but it was a lot of bros being really very aggressive about biceps. I remember seeing an A board outside of a gym. It was a meme online, and it was like, tired of being fat and ugly? Just be ugly. And I know you're laughing because I know you know the thing I'm on about. But like all of the messaging at the time was around supplements. So I think you can afford to be quite direct response in supplements because there's nothing to do. But I was coming at it as a personal trainer, trying to find, who can I learn from to help me with coaching? And there really wasn't anyone much in the space at the time. Like this is when we first met. There wasn't a ton of people doing that sort of marketing at the time. So I just felt like, one, that feels gross. I don't want to talk to people like that. And secondly, I don't think it's even a smart tactical move to take someone who's on the brink of change and then making them dependent on me. I feel like that's such a disempowering, hopeless dynamic where they're now clinging on to you like this drowning person. I believed at the time that if you robbed someone of kindness, you robbed them of the autonomy to change. And I don't want people to think when we say kindness, this is a bunch of soft cock copy. This is not, I'm nice all the time. I'm quite direct. But it's not about being cruel. It's not about taking a problem and magnifying it and making it a catastrophe. And this is a disastrous situation that you're in. And if you don't act now, it's just going to get exponentially worse and you'll probably explode and get AIDS. I don't want to do any of that, right? It just feels buzzing to me. It just doesn't feel true, right, or conducive to change. So the kindness in kind copy comes from making sure everybody feels hope and power and not twisting the knife. People are already down and they're already looking to you for help. I just don't think you need to be cruel about it.
I think it's that big distinction of bringing someone's problems to the surface versus, that phrase, twisting the knife and making them feel terrible about it. It's like I want someone to be aware of their problems. So if I'm helping someone get into copywriting, I'm going to bring up the stuff they already know is a problem or they're already seeing as some sort of challenge, as in they've got the Sunday night blues, they're sitting there, they get in the car on the Monday morning, they breathe that sigh as they're doing it again and they can't wait till the weekend, it's only Monday morning. The fact they probably feel a bit guilty for missing out kids' events and stuff. I'm happy talking about that because they already know it. What I'm not going to do is then say, and you're going to grow up or your kids are going to grow up to absolutely hate you.
That's it. That's the line.
Yeah, and that's not great copy, but that idea of, that, and go, you're probably going to have a heart attack and die early because you're so stressed. Like, no, you don't need to do that, I think. And not only do I not think that works particularly well, but then you alluded to this, what kind of relationship does it set up to begin with? Especially in a coaching relationship, it's like, I don't want people who are terrified and angry and annoyed and scared when they come to work with me.
Exactly right. And the thing is, it does work. That's the hard thing. I couldn't look at you and say, it doesn't work because it does. It works exceptionally well in supplements. It works exceptionally well to sell gym memberships. It works great to sell a product. But if you expect someone to be instrumental in their own change, it doesn't make good sense for you to hit that angle because the people you will attract are, I don't want to say broken, but they are looking to you to save them. And then you'll end up with a business full of people who are absolute fucking lunatics and you don't like working with. I actually did this, like when I was a coach and I moved my business online and I hadn't had this realization yet, all of the direct response is find the pain, lean on the pain, right? So that's what I did. And to a degree. And I lent into the mindset angle because I'd been a psychologist and I ended up attracting people who were absolute bloody crackers. Spoken as a psychologist, they were mental. And I was like, why am I getting a few of these Fruit Loops every now and again? Not everybody, obviously, but like now and again, you'd have someone who was like, I need you to coach me like in real time on the phone because I can't brush my teeth. I'm like, literally none of that is what I signed up for. That's crazy. I'm not going to do any of that. Here's how we could find a workaround, like if that's something you're struggling with. But I'm like, and then I was like, do you know what I mean? I was grieving my dad, Mike. I couldn't be asked with any of that. Yeah. So I just couldn't be asked. So I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I didn't.
And do you think fitness professionals are still making that same mistake with copy and marketing, or do you think it's evolved to a degree?
Yeah, I definitely think it's gone kinder. I definitely think that this, like when I launched Kind Copy, this was a revolutionary idea. Like this was a real market disruptor. I think there's a lot more people generally accept this idea as true now, I think. I think the fitness industry itself is much less cruel. I think it's much, or maybe it just hides it better. It doesn't want to be seen as that person anymore. And I think this is no longer like a revolutionary act to just be kind to people who are trying to make changes in their life. But once upon a time, not that long ago, that was a really unusual take.
Is there anything you still see in the fitness world that you cringe at or you even like get slightly annoyed about that people are doing with their marketing?
One of the things I think comes up for me, and this is a small thing, but you know when people post their morning routine, or this is what my day's looking like today, and it's, you know, I'm going to do my 10,000 steps, I'm going to walk my dog, I'm going to take my kid to school, I'm going to, you know, do my ice bath and my whatever, like a list of like random shit. And then client check-ins is like footnote on the list. I don't dislike the idea of sharing what you're doing in a day, but there's absolutely no value in that at all. There's literally no value in that other than for someone to see I'm maybe a 10th of the things that are on your list today, and I'm a 10th of that 10th probably. I think that's probably a mistake that I see. I don't think it's ill-intentioned. I think it's just a mistake.
I think a lot of the time it's almost done to impress peers. I can't see how that's attracting a client at all. I think from my perspective, I'm not nearly as involved in the industry as I was, but for me, fake vulnerability is a big thing. Like I think vulnerability is so powerful, but it's like the whole, you get a very in shape, probably in this instance, normally female influencer being like, oh, I'm having a fat day today. And like kind of bending slightly and pinching not even an inch, like an eighth of an inch of skin. Or, you know, I'll flip it around. You get the guy who says like, oh, I wasn't always in this shape. And they'll post a picture of them at 16. You're like, yeah,
You're
but
a child.
I can see, yeah, but I can still see you've got like capped delts and visible abs at 16. Like, oh, I've not always been big and jacked. Like, no, but your genetic potential is insane. Yeah. And I think as someone who knows how powerful vulnerability can be, I hate it when people misuse that, because then it also creates so much skepticism around other people using it. I'm like, use vulnerability, but do it honestly, do it sparingly. And it's like the whole, fitness influencers doing it. It's kind of like when the billionaire puts his Bugatti in for a service, says, "Oh, I'm only driving a Porsche today." You're like, yeah, I get everyone has their own problems, but that's not really going to resonate with a lot of people.
Completely. Yeah, weaponized vulnerability is a great answer. And the flip side of that, clumsy vulnerability, where they're like, look, I'm having an affair, I'm on all these drugs. I'm just like, you sound like an absolute wild card. Like, you sound like such a high-risk investment.
Yeah, I think Ben Settle talks about it's good to speak about scars, but don't speak about open wounds. Yeah. So wait till you've gone through it, learn the lessons, can pass the lessons on. Don't, as you say, do the whole, going through a divorce, I'm on all this medication, it's making me crazy, and my dog just ran away.
Yeah, my kids are going to be watching this video. She's like, oh no.
Yeah, DM me for coaching.
DM me for relationship advice. Maybe don't.
Cool. So we'll wrap up with the final 5 in a minute. First off, Cath, if people want to get in touch with you, where are the best places to go?
I would love for people to reach me on Instagram. My name is @kindcopyuk. This is not a pitch, obviously. Just come and say hi, have a chat. It actually is me in the DMs. There is no leverage. There's no bots. There's no team members. It's me talking bollocks in the DMs as much as I possibly can.
Love it. Cool. So the quickfire 5. Number 1, if you could gift any business, copywriting, marketing or mindset book to someone, what would it be and why?
It's a tricky question, this one. Of all of the questions, I think this is going to be the hardest one. I think anything by Rory Sutherland, you'd be hard-pressed to get wrong. In terms of books to help you to write, I probably would tell you just write. One of the ways that you can do this is to think about something that you have persuaded someone to do in the last 48 hours. You want to watch this film, not that film on Netflix with your husband, and you're making your pitch. Practice doing that in writing. And one of the easiest things to look for is that you are still talking about the same thing at the start as the end. That's probably don't read anything about that, just write.
Love that. Never heard that advice before. I think that's, very good. Like it. Question number 2, we're going for a coffee and I'm buying. What's your order?
Flat white, please.
Perfect. Question number 3, you're in charge of the internet for a day and you can delete any social media. Which one are you going to choose?
I'm definitely deleted LinkedIn without a second's hesitation. Yeah, I don't think anybody would even notice if LinkedIn disappeared.
We've not had that answer as nearly as much as I thought we would.
Bizarre.
And LinkedIn is just an utter cringe fest. Really.
It's horrendous.
I'm amazed people still take it seriously.
My toes are curling in my shoes just saying the name.
Yeah.
Having said that, I am actually on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, so am I. I started posting on it regularly about 6 months ago. It can be useful, but yeah, it's just horrendous. I have to.
It's spectacularly boring. I think it's actually quite dangerous to log into LinkedIn, because as soon as I go in, I'm like, what is it about this interface that is so desperately boring?
And I think for a professional platform, the unprofessional comments in terms of just outsourcing them to AI, I'm like, yeah, I'd expect that on other social media, but yeah, maybe not this one. But anyway, that's probably a rant for another day. Question 4 is, you're hosting a dinner party, can have 3 guests, living or dead. Who are you going to choose?
That's such a good question. I'm definitely having Rick Mail, and he's going to sit right next to me. I will have Angela Lansbury, but I'd like her to specifically show up as Jessica Fletcher.
Okay.
And third person, who would be fun? Stevie Nicks could be fun.
Okay, nice mix.
Yeah.
And then final question is, what advice would you give to someone who maybe they're starting their copywriting career, they want to emulate you and get to where you are? What would be the advice you give them?
My first piece of advice is to learn from someone who's done it already. So I started with Mike's course, Freedom Kickstarter, which I believe is still available.
Certainly is.
Definitely get that. That was my starting point. I would also say, don't get too married to any one person's way of doing things. Like, I imagine you're the same. We'll read Gary Halbert and Ben Savenga, and we'll read all of it. But ultimately, this is about developing your own style and your own voice. And you won't do that from copying other people, but you'll have to consume their stuff and practice. So this is about you and what you need, and focusing on that as a primary strategy by doing.
Amazing. Great advice. Thanks, Cath. That was fantastic. And I know I said this before, but just from a personal standpoint, it's been great just to see you kind of take action, roll with things, and see kind of where you are now. So massive congratulations, and thanks for taking action on the course that you bought all those years ago. So,
thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me on. This has been class.
No worries at all. Thank you guys as well. Appreciate you watching as always. All the links for today's stuff will be down below. If you wouldn't mind, any likes, comments, subscribe, shares, all that kind of stuff, always very much appreciated. And I'll catch you on the next episode.